Welcome back to the Remote Bibliographic Records Correction Program, which is cooperative between SFCC and Wendell Middle School. When we looked at the introductory lesson, we were mostly looking at how to work in wendell.follettdestiny.com, our website. So if you're not sure how to log into the website, you'll want to go back to the introductory tutorial. So we'll be working from the website that looks like this. And in the last tutorial, the introduction, I gave you a brief challenge at the end to find the books on wendell.follettdestiny.com that I named, and then cross-reference them with Library Thing, Library of Congress, and Amazon. And what can you learn about each book? So the first book, Be a Perfect Person in Just 3 Days. I think you found probably that this was a pretty good record. It had a lot to offer. The second example, which is by Anne M. Martin, is called With You and Without You. This is an example of a record that is questionable, but probably pretty fixable. So the record itself had some features missing, but we could fix it. And then at last we come to one that was a little more difficult, The Buddha's Diamonds by Carolyn Marsden, and I don't know how to say this author's name, but something like Tai Phap Nhiem. This record lacked nearly everything and made it extremely difficult to figure out exactly what we know about the record. Because it was the most challenging of the 3 titles, I'm going to work with The Buddha's Diamonds. And if I just type in the word Buddha here under the basic search, this is again under Catalog, Library Search, Basic Search, I type in just a partial title, Buddha, to see what I find. And I'm not seeing anything, so my library search was not successful. But don't worry. The barcode is enough to get you what you need. So as long as you have a barcode, and you will, you type that in using the T first, and this is T30878. And it should bring it up. Now, one of the reasons why we were unable to find it before is because you can see Buddha is misspelled, and it should be the Buddha's Diamonds, but it's missing the S as well as the misspelling of Buddha. We do see that this isn't a bad record. They've got a call number and it's accurate. It does tell us the status. It says location. The title details are really missing a lot of stuff. So let's compare this to the Library of Congress online catalog. And what we see here is that it is by Carolyn Marsden. Now we knew that because we had an image of the book that I shared with you, but you won't have that in the future. So how will you know that this is the Buddha's Diamonds? Well, one of the tools I use is Amazon. I search it on Amazon to see if there are any other titles, and you might say, well, why wouldn't Library of Congress have that? In this digital age where we have many self-published authors, they don't always publish in a formal sense. So we want to make sure that the book isn't a self-published book. We do have some of those in our library's collection, although they're unusual to find, but we do have some. And so we're looking here and we see that Amazon offers the Buddha's Diamonds, and the next one is called the Diamond Cutter. And then we have the Heart of the Buddha's Teaching. So these are not the same book. And this is also by Carolyn Marsden. So this confirms what we see here as far as call number. We don't have an author, so we don't know if Marsden is the right author based only on the call number. We can say that it's probably Marsden because we have the title The Buddha's Diamond and we don't see any additional copies in Amazon. So we're making a little bit of guesswork on this. We can also search Library Thing for the Buddha's Diamonds, and you'll see that no other libraries have anything called the Buddha's Diamond or Diamonds. You could try searching it with the misspelling to see if somebody misspelled it. You might end up with something that is self-published. I've found self-published books with misspelled titles before, but that's probably not very likely. So we do see it here in Library Thing. Now, what are the purposes of these three tools that I use? Library of Congress I use to confirm the author's name and the title and the spelling of both. I also use it to search ISBNs. If we scroll down, you can see the ISBNs here. And then I sometimes will copy and paste this summary, especially if you don't have the book in hand, then you don't know what the back of the book says or jacket flap. If you do copy paste a summary, make sure that you credit the Library of Congress in your record. I use Amazon to make sure there isn't another title like this one, and I also use it to search the book's general price. Now you won't know if it's hardcover or paperback, so go with the hardcover price if one is offered. This may only come in paperback. No, it says hardcover, so we can click on hardcover, and it's about the same price, so I would say $6 either way. I use Library Thing to help me find out what categories fit the book. Library Thing is used by many librarians, and there are 57 librarians using this record for the Buddha's Diamonds. Of those 57 members, we can see the work details that they've given it. It includes ISBN as well. Doesn't hurt to double check that. But mostly on the main page I use it for those tags because this helps me to learn more about the book. I now see that it's realistic fiction, so that might be one of the copy categories that I will assign to it. I don't have real narrow copy categories like Buddhism, but realistic fiction and family, I have both of those. So as long as I've got something similar, I also have a category like multicultural, and we'll look at that in a little bit when we are cataloging a book. For now, I'm going to leave the Buddha's Diamonds with its errors, along with Be a Perfect Person in Just 3 Days, and With You and Without You. I'm going to leave those erroneous so that we can use them for future lessons. So we're just going to leave those mistakes in there. Next, I'm going to have you go back to the shelf list, and you're going to find the barcode for Lord Kirkle's Money. We're going to work with that book, and I'm going to show you how to import a better record for it. So here we are back in our catalog. We're going to go to Reports, Report Manager, and you hit the View button to see the shelf list. Once you've got your shelf list, your instructor will tell you which titles that you'll be responsible for. And we're going to look at Lord Kirkle's Money, which is T35228. So we go back to the catalog and we type in that number under barcode, T35228. And here's Lord Kirkle's Money. So far we don't have a lot of information, but let's look under title details. Okay, again, we are without an author, but we have Fick Obi to work with, and that's something, and we have a title. So we go to the Library of Congress online, we type in Lord Kirkle's Money in their search bar, and they also seem to have a title like that. It says Lord Kirkle's Money by Avi. Avi is a children's book writer. That doesn't mean that maybe there isn't another title with someone who has a last name starting with the letters AVI, but here we do have one. It has a nice summary, and it has the Library of Congress number, and it looks like we have a series title, Beyond the Western Sea. That's going to come in handy because as we search for this, we're going to find even more interesting questions about the title. Here's our ISBN. That's going to be helpful too. On Amazon, I found it. Sometimes it's called Lord Kirkle's Money. Sometimes it's called Beyond the Western Sea Book 2. So this one, for example, by Avi, Lord Kirkle's Money, Beyond the Western Sea Book 2. And then Beyond the Western Sea Book 2, Lord Kirkle's Money. So we've got all kinds of possibilities. This is one of the reasons why I use Library of Congress and also Library Sing to cross-reference. You can't trust just Amazon because sometimes these books are sold by individuals who don't know as much about books as they do about their own businesses, whether that business is, for example, a secondhand store and they're trying to get rid of books. Here we see Library Sing. Now, the 243 members who have this book are mostly librarians, so I do trust this website to some degree. However, it has its imperfections. So in a library title, money wouldn't be capitalized. Lord Kirkle would. So we do sometimes see some errors here, and that's something to bear in mind. But we also see in the work details some interesting features. We know it's historical fiction, we know it's adventure. Those are both very bold, and with 243 members commenting on this one, I have a strong suspicion those two are probably true. It's classified as young adult, and I only classify books young adult if I think there could be some controversial material in them. For example, there might be some sword fighting with a little bit of graphic detail. There might be a mention of sexuality. There might be swear words. So young adult is how we classify the more mature materials in our library. Keep that in mind. I looked through here and I also found in the library details it says series with order Beyond the Western Sea. So our title of the series is Beyond the Western Sea, and you can use Library of Congress to confirm a series title to make sure it's spelled correctly and to get additional information about the series, like other titles in the series. So now we have a lot of information to work with. Let's go back to the Library of Congress and let's take that ISBN and we're going to copy paste it. And we're going to go back here. Now this is a really weak record. When the record has very little to offer, I don't hesitate to delete it. You may be concerned when you go to copies and you see that the status is that it's checked out. But I don't want you to worry about that. Just don't even bother. If a student checked it out and they bring it back, it will say that it was used in the library. It won't even notice. The computer will not notice that you deleted it. It may ask if you want to charge that student and you'll say no. Okay, so if you delete this title, even if it's checked out, it's not going to bother me or anybody else as long as you don't charge our students for a lost copy. So we're going to go ahead and delete the title. I know this makes you worry, but don't worry. I do this all day long, deleting titles. So we're going to delete this. I'm going to permanently delete the title from the district catalog because I see there are no off-site copies of the title, and other people in our district are happy when I delete these junky records. So we're going to permanently delete it. We're also going to click on Track Any Deleted Copies as Weeded. If you do not click on this, then the student who has that book checked out, it may come back as a lost book. Okay, so we're going to track it as weeded, and then we're going to hit yes. Now we have to re-add the title. Don't walk away from the computer at this point because we need that record back in our computer. So we go in and we add the title. And you can do books with title, but I prefer ISBN because you're going to get the more correct book that way. We just copied it from Library of Congress. So now we're going to paste that ISBN number in there, hit go, and here we see the title, Beyond the Western Sea, Book 2, Lord Kirkle's Money. Now interestingly, this one is a little different than that one. So I don't know if I trust these records. Even though they say A+, sometimes the librarians who created them don't know how to catalog as well as others. So I'm going to go back to add title, and this time I'm going to put in the title, and I'm going to put in Lord Kirkle's Money. And here we see a third option. With just the title, we've come up with Beyond the Western Sea, Book 2, Lord Kirkle's Money. So the question is now, which one do we want? We can look at the title details. We can see what they offer, see how long it is as far as how many. These Explore options are search terms. How many search terms do they have? How many ISBNs? Use these breadcrumbs to go back to your search results. Oh, and we have even more now. Interesting. All right, let's look at this one and see how good this one is. Oh, it has lots of ISBNs. That's very nice. Has lots of search terms. Has fairly modern art. And I look at all of those things when I decide on a title. Now, one of the things you'll want to make sure that you do is go back to your reports. I've just saved this title. You're going to want to go back to your reports and go back to the report manager. Take a look at your view. You should be able to see the original barcode for this, Lord Kirkle's Money. There it is, T35228, because you're going to make a new record for this one using that barcode. This barcode is a sticker that's on the actual physical book in our library, so you want to make sure you type it correctly. If possible, copy paste it if your computer allows for that, and that way you won't have any flaws in the numbers that you type in. So back to our catalog, we're going to look for the basic search of Lord Kirkle's Money. And there's our title. We just saved it. So it says no copies, but we need to add a copy. So we go into copies. We're going to add the copy with the barcode we just did a copy of from the shelf list. We're going to paste that in to make sure that we have it correct. You don't want a space between the T and the numbers. I think my copy paste gave it a space it doesn't need. Now, for some reason it likes to default to these brackets, but we don't use brackets. So we're going to erase the brackets, and we know it's by Avi, so this is going to be Fic Avi with a space between. That's capital F, lowercase I, lowercase c, space, capital A, lowercase v, lowercase I. The purchase price, I have it still open. It looks like on Amazon the hardcover is $15.87, and we don't know when we're working remotely if it's hardcover or paperback, but when I replace a book I try to buy the hardcover. So we're going to round up to $16. We're going to put that price in with a $sign. Now for copy categories, I revert back to my library thing. I look for the most bold print concepts. It says adventure, historical fiction, and it considers this young adult, and I'm going to take its advice on that, since it does look like maybe there's some sword fighting in this book, maybe a little bit of blood, so it wouldn't hurt to include that. You could spend a little time researching and find out what really happens in the book before you decide that. But go to copy categories, hit update. Please do not add any new categories to this. It gives that option here, but please don't. We don't want any additional categories because it can get kind of crazy. So what we're going to look for are those categories that we mentioned. Young adult, I believe it said it was adventure, and it also said that it was historical fiction. So we'll look for those three, and that will help students search for it based on their favorites. If they like to read historical fiction, this one will pop up in their search. Now, as far as volume, issue, etc., I save this for whether or not it's a book in a series. So you're going to type in book, and then over here where it says number 2. I also put accelerated reader information here, but we'll save that for another day. Today's lesson, I want to keep it pretty straightforward. For the sublocation, all of the books that you are working with are going to be under Wendell Middle School Library General Fiction. That's WMSL General Fiction. That's the sublocation. And don't put in a vendor or funding source. Most of our books have been donations, but we're just going to leave that blank. So now we're going to save our copy. We only had one copy with this barcode, and we've got a call number. If you forget the call number, it gives you a pop-up that says you need a call number. Now we can go back to the title details, and we can see the information we've put in. Local copies, there's one. Wendell Middle School General Fiction, Fic Avi. It says Beyond the Western Sea is the title. And I'm not sure that that's accurate, but sometimes it's hard to tell. Okay, Lord Kirkle's Money, not sure if that's the title. We can base it on what we've learned from the library thing, from Amazon, and from Library of Congress, the most trusted being Library of Congress. And with a little more research, we could find out which is the title of the book and which is the series title. I'm thinking because this says main title Lord Kirkle's Money, that's the actual title. And here it says series Beyond the Western Sea. It also says book 2. So we have a nice confirmation there on Library of Congress. That's who I use for my confirmations. So it wouldn't hurt to go back and change this. And the way you do that is you go into Edit Title. And so we see Beyond the Western Sea is the series title. Lord Kirkle's Money, lowercase m, is the main title. So we're going to change this to Lord Kirkle's Money, lowercase m. We use sentence structure for our titles. If it has a leading article, a, an, or the, you put it in here. And then let's say it was called The Lord's Money. It would be the here and then Lord's Money. Subtitle is different than series title, and I wouldn't worry about that for now. Let's keep this simple. When we go to series notes, that's where we're going to put in the title of the series. Avon Camelot book is not the title of the series. According to Library of Congress, the title of the series is Beyond the Western Sea. So we're going to copy that and we're going to paste it in here. And for interest level, it's hard sometimes to tell if it's young adult. I tend to put young adult. If I don't know a lot about the book, I do sometimes use Library Thing to help me decide that. When we see a summary, when we want to put our own summary in, you'll want to switch general to summary. Content is where you put in a table of contents. That's a little trickier. I'd leave that alone. So only put summaries if the record doesn't have one already. If it has one, let's just leave it. I would assume this one is probably from the jacket flap. If they don't have a lot of search terms, you can put some in we use the Sears subject headings, and that's all we use. So if you're not familiar with Sears, skip that. If you have a Sears, you're welcome to use it, but don't guess, because it does make it harder to cross-reference them if you put in the wrong information under subject. The brief title is going to include things like a Library of Congress number. So if you're also open to Library of Congress and you see the Library of Congress number, you can copy paste that in, and here it is. So we'll add that information just so that our record is even more complete. It's impossible for you to tell things like the physical description, the size and extent, how many pages. You could look at it on Amazon, but you know, there's also a chance that we have an unusual copy and that those records could be incorrect. So probably best not to choose things like subtype or to try and put in a physical description. But it's nice to have the author listed. That helps us with cross-referencing other books, and it helps us find the title. Once you've done a little bit of doctoring to the record, if it needs it, then you save your title. I love this in Follett Destiny. It offers the correct punctuation, but read through them carefully because it often tries to fix things that are not wrong. So you want to read them and then click your select and save title. And now we see the title is Lord Kirkle's Money, and that the series is Beyond the Western Sea, but I don't know why it has this. That should be removed, so we might have to go into Mark to fix that. And I'll show that on another lesson, but for today this was a good start, and we've really improved this record tremendously. I'd be proud of this one. The record we've been working with was a lot like the record for the Buddha's diamonds, which we looked at earlier. It's such a simplistic record that I don't have any difficulty deleting the original record and importing something new. On the other hand, a record like Be a Perfect Person in Just 3 Days was a pretty decent record. It had a lot to offer already. So it had search terms in the Explore section. It had an accurate call number. It is available outside of our school within the district, so if you delete the record, it won't allow you to delete it for the whole district, so don't even worry about that. But you might want to just focus on the copy itself in the case where the record is a decent record. Look for things like copy categories that you could add. Check to make sure that the call number is typed correctly, and double check the price. I think the hardest ones to decide are the ones like with you and without you's record. This record, it does have a few search terms but could use some more. The call number looks okay, but the location needs changed. It only has a couple of ISBNs. If we add more, we might get a picture. The question is, do you want to edit the title and add all this stuff, or do you want to just delete it and start with a fresh record? Before you work with copies, you'll want to make sure you decide whether or not you're going to delete the whole record. But if you decide to work with the record you have, then start working in copies, and you can see that there are some things that have already been added. It's an accelerated reader book. It's been noted as a chapter book. Does it maybe have some additional copy categories that you could add? You could certainly look this up using Library Thing and read through some of the reviews on Amazon to see what people say about it. That's all I have for you in this particular video. Hopefully this gave you some idea about how to delete records, import new records, correct those records, improve records, and use online tools like Library of Congress to cross-reference what we do know about a book with what little bit of information we can glean from them. I believe your instructor is going to give you a list of titles that you can work with, and if you have further questions you can ask her or she may also want to refer some of your questions to me. Thank you so much for your help.